Okay, we are back in session. It's about 1:34 p.m. And next on the list, Ms. Darrow, do you have any witnesses to call?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Levin?
No, sir.
No witnesses?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. Mr. McFarland?
No witnesses.
That was easy.
Everybody's in.
No witness.
Oh, so
I will.
you would
I will
like to
testify.
be your own witness?
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
With you.
Clarification.
No, we'll leave it alone. Unless you. Don't hammer at me.
Do solemnly state that the evidence you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
So, Mr. McFarland, you will be, obviously, we don't expect you to turn around, ask yourself a question, and then turn around and answer. So you will be subject to cross-examination once you're done. So if you could please present your testimony.
And my testimony will be brief and very similar to my opening statement. I will qualify it by saying I was a bit concerned, Mr. Flitner, by your comment earlier about how little weight the NOVs will have in your ultimate decision because you're going to base this on law. And I mean that very respectfully, but in my mind and reasoning, much of the opposition that's been presented as testimony and our position as adjacent landowners is based on those NOVs because it speaks to the character of Mr. Gimmick, whether it's Hopper Metals or Hopper Disposal. And I know there's a semantic difference, but I think it's been established they're both owned by Mr. Dimmick, and I mean this respectfully to Mr. Dimmick as well. But the DEQ is a government entity, and while the NOV is not a court judgment, it is a docket with the docket number. So to me, that is part of the law, and you may correct me on that. But so in one sense, I think perhaps my words will be wasted if there's not a lot of merit that's going to be placed on the NOVs. But on the other hand, as I understand it, part of the law is that the permit application can be denied because of different aspects of the law, one of which is the owner's past non-compliance in the business that he operates, which to me has been very clearly established in this case, that he has been non-compliant. And I guess the thing that concerned me as I was sitting here this morning, and I came to the position of being more concerned, not less concerned than when I initially filed my petition, because it appeared to me that in Mr. Dimmick's questioning this morning, that he was making arguments for some things that he had basically already admitted to. And to me, that again spoke to, and I know Mr. Dimmick, this is going to sound disrespectful, and I certainly don't mean it to, but it spoke to the dubious nature of his character. Instead of arguing about who owns the scales and is it possible that those scales are on a portion of the property that's not actually a part of the proposed facility location, when, according to your testimony, Charlie, he had already admitted that he had poured the scales, and he admitted to the reason that he poured the scales, which was to try to beat the bad weather, which is a legitimate concern. I'm a former contractor, although I know that there are currently lots of concrete operations going on. So he still could have obtained the permit prior to doing that. But it was much like his response to Mr. Plamail concerning the legitimacy of Charlie's inspection of the Shoshone facility and did he take samples of the fire, and how does he know what the nature of the burning was, when that really wasn't the issue? And what I failed to hear in any of his responses or in any of the documentation that I've read from the DEQ.
With all due respect,
Yes, sir.
I'm listening to you. What I'm getting is your interpretation of the testimony. And I don't want that. I want your testimony. I
Okay.
want what you bring, not what he said, not how we should interpret what he said or how he acted on the. I want to know what your testimony is,
Okay,
not your interpretation of someone else.
okay, may I qualify my statement then? And then I'll
Yeah, just try to get to what you bring.
Okay. I'll qualify what I said then. It wasn't really my interpretation. It's exactly what I heard. And
But we all heard it
everybody-
well. I don't need it. I don't need it again.
So I'll move on.
Sorry to disrupt your flow there. I didn't mean to do that. I just wanted to, we want to hear what you have to say. not-
Good. What I have to say is that I represent approximately 170 landowners and or tenants that live nearby the proposed facility. Based on all the evidence that I've read and heard thus far, my testimony is that there's a lack of credibility in Mr. Dimick's response to the violations that have been established. There's a lack of credibility in how he may conduct his business in relationship to how he says he's going to conduct his business, which raises great questions as to his level of trustworthiness so as to create a real hazard to the health and well-being of the people that live nearby if he operates his Riverton facility in the same manner that he operates his Shoshone facility, and in the same manner that he apparently has been accused of illegal burning on the reservation as well as Shoshone. If that happens in the facility location that he's applying for, it creates a very real hazard to the people that live nearby. As can be seen from the photographs on the back of the exhibit that we received this morning, November 6, 2017, on a separate issue, there's clearly no screening of any of this property, which, as I understand from testimony this morning, if it's within a certain number of feet, this property has to be screened from view. There's no screening. It's open and obvious. It's immediately adjacent to Riverton's recreational facilities. Mrs. Hanson, who wasn't able to be here this morning, owns and operates with her husband 2 mobile home parks nearby. Some of the residents of those motorhome parks, the mobile home parks, are special needs children who can't be held to the same standard of conduct as other kids. They travel nearby. Even if it's operated according to the rules and regulations established by the DEQ permit, it still seems like a bad idea given the location that it's in. I'll close my testimony then by saying quite simply that given Mr. Dimick's past performance, his response to allegations, what I have yet to hear is any sort of apology or offer of remedy to the violations that have been given him. Instead, this is strong language, but I'll say it again, there's a defiance and a justification for what he's done, which leads us to believe that he can't be trusted in what he's about to do if the permit is established. And to me, that is a matter of law when you enter in the docket numbers, the past performance of his business operation. Thank you. And I'm sorry if
No apology necessary. As they'll tell you on this council, I speak out of turn more than anybody. You don't have to apologize to me.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. McFarland. And the council makes these decisions as a body. And so it's, Mr. Footner is one member of the council, and we always get to know what he's thinking. So, cross-examination, Mr. Dimick, please.
None for me, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Oh, no,
I'm sorry.
I'm going in a different order than I have been, sorry.
My apologies.
Yeah.
Mr. Well, I appreciate your comments. Prior to today, have you and I ever met?
No,
Have we ever had a conversation before?
not that I'm aware of.
We've never discussed my personal character personally, you and I.
Correct.
Ms. McFarland, you used the term, your property is adjacent to the property. Are you along that fence line with the landowner
I should qualify that. My property is nearby.
nearby?
Within eyesight, it's not directly adjacent to.
Okay. Of the people that you've spoken with, do you know how many are actually adjacent to the property?
I would say one, and again, perhaps I misrepresented that. Adjacent to or nearby would be my correct answer. I apologize that I misstated that.
Okay.
There would be one. He was present here this morning. I don't see him now. Who he's adjacent to. All of the others are in very close proximity, probably less than a quarter of a mile radius.
Okay. As you're representing Ms. Hanson, approximately how far away would you say that her mobile home park, that she's listed as A&J Mobile Home Park, is away from the facility?
Well, it's on the corner of Park Street and Smith Road, and your property is the next property north on Smith Road from the hockey field. So I don't have that distance exactly, but less than a quarter of a mile.
May I clarify that? I'm referencing A&J Mobile Home Park, but what you've referenced is Cliffview Mobile Home Park.
Correct.
So I'm referring to A&J Mobile Home Park.
That would be further away than the quarter mile radius.
So it's located up near Federal and the existing scrap yard,
Yes.
which, okay, so we're well over a mile away, correct?
Yeah. I believe there are over 100 tenants in her Cliffview mobile home that would be nearby.
Okay. If I may, I wanted to ask her this. Are you aware that based on public record that Amy Hanson does not own Cliffview Mobile Home Park?
I am not.
It lists the owners of what I presume is Jeremy Hanson's.
Your Honor, I'm going to object. He's not testifying. Again, he's trying to testify, but not being subject to cross-examination. The question was, do you know? The answer was, no, I do not.
Correct. So that question is answered.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Right, thank you. Mr. Rock?
Hi, Mr. McFarland, and thank you for taking the time to come in and testify today. I don't think I have any questions for you. If there's any other facts that you want to get in the record now, I'd really appreciate it. Any more comments, any public comments in the process?
Two other comments. One, Mike, this morning, when you were testifying, you made the comment, we do what we do because of what we do. And I didn't really understand what that meant, and I know you meant it in a positive manner. As I've heard your responses to some of the testimony this morning, I'm not comforted by that statement really. So I just wanted to comment on that we do what we do because of what we do could as easily be taken in a very negative context as a very positive context. And then the only other thing I have to comment on, or that I want on the record, is pertinent, I believe, as we weigh the overall evidence that's being presented here today, and it's actually the slogan underneath the DEQ letterhead, which says, to protect, conserve, and enhance the quality of Wyoming's environment for the benefit of current and future generations. And I think that statement applies very aptly here, again, as it concerns Mr. Dimick's failure to comply with DEQ regulations in his previous and present business operation.
Thanks, Mr. McFarland, and I have no further questions.
Ms. Darrow?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Solers?
Mr. Chairman, are the objections made part of the record?
Yes, everything is being recorded in the transcript, right?
That was a different type of objections. The objections to issuance of the permit, Mr. McFarland filed an objection. Is that part of this record?
Oh, okay, so it's part of the record, it is posted, but it's not, at this point, it's not technically evidence unless it's presented.
Okay. If I could approach, please.
Yes.
I want to show you, Mr. McFarland. It's a document that appears to be signed by you and numerous others.
Correct. I have a copy here.
Okay, does that set forth the bullet points of the rationale for your objection?
It does.
Okay.
May I read those?
Well,
Or would you?
in a second, what I'd like to do then is ask you if you would like that document entered into the record of these proceedings as an exhibit.
Yes, if it's not too late to do that.
So you've moved to enter this as an exhibit?
I think he's moving, I'm helping.
I'm gonna label it WAS 21, so you may want to use one of the
Okay, then I would.
All right. I'll ask if there are objections. Do you object?
I believe so. On the grounds of something that was made comment earlier, some of it's more accusation than fact. Just that being said, consider everything in this document as fact, or is it just we're going to add it as an opinion to the case?
Yeah, that's a good point. Because it's already been, it's already public record that we've already read, I will go ahead and allow it to be entered, but your objection is noted. So yes, it's been entered as exhibit WES 21.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Mr. Levin?
No questions.
Council members, any questions? Mr. Flitter? Ms. Lowen?
No,
So I have some questions. And we see this often that, you know, folks don't want to be near a facility of a certain type. And some of the facilities that the state permits are things people don't want to be next to, a landfill or a mine of some kind. And that's part of why we have this process, is to make sure that if these sorts of, if a permit is issued, it has been issued legally and that all aspects have been properly considered as according to the law and the regulations. But what I'd like, so I just want to make that point because as council members, we have listened to landowners in nearby to other types of facilities and have expressed concerns that we certainly appreciate your coming and bringing these concerns forward to us. But what I want to ask then is what type of hazards are you worried about with this facility?
The type of hazards that we would be worried about are the open burning of materials in a non-compliant manner to that which the permit states, as has been done, or as I understand has been done in Shoshone.
Okay,
It has nothing to do with materials themselves if this business was conducted in accordance with the permit. We live nearby the other facility that has been there. We've lived in the location where we are, which is just very slightly north, for 40 years. We understand that the current landfill and baling facility is there. It's a very cleanly run operation. my friend and the landowner in this permit application, Dave Long, is sitting there. Dave has a gravel and asphalt pit right across the street from this proposed location. We have, over the years, received some dust clouds that come in and are a bit of a nuisance. I've never addressed that with Dave because of our relationship and a two-generation friendship with his family. So those things don't bother me, even though they're inconveniences. I assume that those are risks that we take for living where we live. Our concern that, I know I'm being redundant at this point, but our concern is what Mr. Dimick will do with this facility based on what he has done in the past. And to us, to me, there's more evidence that he will be in non-compliance than there is that he will be compliant. Not just in the Shoshone facility, but the very fact that he was presumptuous enough to pour the concrete for the scales before he even had the permit, and then try to argue this morning about whose land it is and who owns the scales when he admitted to what he had done. And again, I don't mean to be disrespectful to Mr. Flitner, but that's not my interpretation of a testimony. That's exactly what he said. And so to me, that mindset is of grave concern in how he will conduct his business. And once that business is established, what grounds anyone will have to try to remedy anything that goes wrong, because it's been almost a year since the initial NOV that was issued. January 10th is the date of the letter. And in my last conversations with Luke Esch, that's still unresolved. And I know this morning, I think it was stated that that's in the hands of the Attorney General's office. So we don't know whether or not that's had any remedy yet or not. But that activity to me speaks highly of how he plans to run this operation and what we can plan. And I'm sorry I interrupted you, but let me add this before I forget. My understanding of this permitting process is that if you grant this permit, it's a permanent permit. Is that correct?
I don't know the answer to that.
Like perpetual, unless is there anyone here who can answer that?
Yes, please, just mention your name for the reporter.
Charles Allen Plano. If the permit is issued, it could be taken away if he doesn't follow compliance.
Okay, thank you. So what I wanted to mention then was, so the burning of solid waste, my understanding is that is not part of the proposed permit. That would be the illegal activity on the land. So the proposed permit, which we saw, the application was very brief, but it did not include any permitting, and that would, of course, if burning was to happen, there'd have to be this whole separate permitting process for the air quality division. So, but your concern is that because it's happened before, there's a possibility that something that's not permitted, like burning, could occur again. Is that correct?
I would emphasize that we don't believe it's a possibility. We believe it's a probability. I would ask, again, was the burning in the Shoshone facility illegal?
Well, definitely. You don't. You can't ask that question. You have to address.
All I'm saying is,
yeah,
the evidence indicates to us that these things aren't possibilities. Well, by definition, they're possibilities, but they're probabilities because our whole concern is based on the lack of credibility of the applicant.
Yeah, and so I understand that. Are there any other hazards that you're concerned about?
No.
So this is a legitimate concern. It would be an illegal activity because that wouldn't be permitted, but other hazards that you're concerned about?
No, there are no hazards. Obviously, no one likes the unsightly nature of things, but I'm not here to argue that. We live nearby a landfill, and we have for 40 years. So I'm not here to make a case for unsightly real estate. I think there are concerns, like I say, about the compliance with the real estate itself. Are there fencing, tree, shrub lines to conceal that from the public, which currently there are not? But no, our concern, whatever merit it carries or however little merit it carries, is based solely on the credibility of the applicant or the lack of credibility based on past performance. There's a high likelihood in our mind that this is what he will do.
I don't have any more questions. Do you have any last comments that you want to redirect on yourself? Any last comments?
I do not.
Thank you, Mr. McFarland.
Thank you.
Mr. Dimick, do you have any witnesses?
I'll witness.
Please call your first witness.
Your Honor, for the record, I would object to Mr. Dimick testifying. This court set rules, guidelines, and dates that you were to name witnesses and exhibits. This action is primarily contesting the DEQ's action, so I don't believe Mr. Dimick is a party. And he failed to follow the rules set by this council in designating witnesses and exhibits, and we don't believe he's eligible to testify based upon that.
Thank you. Your objection is noted. I'll overrule it. In the council prefers to get all the evidence that we can. We knew we identified him as a party, and we in past practice we have allowed the party to testify. One of the things that we will be doing is to make sure that we keep your testimony focused on the issues at hand. So we'll allow that, but your objection is noted. Thank you.
Mr. Dimick, do you solemnly state that the evidence you provide in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
So you may begin.
I like what you said. I'll strive to keep things as relevant and as pertinent to the permit application that's been on hand. My goal is not to shirk away from responsibility, never has been. I like the word probability. I think it's a fascinating thought. My years in business, at least in Wyoming, exceed that of 2,500 days. We put a lot of effort in today's discussions about 2 days. That being said, when we talk about the probability, 2,500 days, there's been 2 negative days. I would argue the probability is fantastic that the venture is going to be in compliance, that the venture is going to bring about good. It's going to be good for the environment. It is going to do great things for a community that is struggling. It's fantastic for me to look back at our years and realize we don't have accidents. We don't have court cases against us as far as the public is concerned. We don't have outstanding offenses outside of an NOV that is yet to be determined. We do a lot of commerce throughout this state and 5 states total. I've put 300,000 miles myself on one vehicle servicing this area since I've been in business. No accidents, no violations, no problems. We're in compliance with the DOT, the Department of Transportation that is federally run. Hopper Metals has its own DOT, Hopper Disposal has its own DOT. Both companies, full compliance. It should be noted that while I was issued an offense to it, I didn't say that it did not happen. What I have argued is the way that it was written was not how it happened. That has been my argument. Not to say, no, there was something else in the container. That wasn't the argument. It was the who, the where, the why of what had happened. But I was never given that, what I felt, that opportunity to say, let me explain my side of the story instead of very similar example. Today we have an NOV. Here, Mr. Dimmick, here's your NOV because you poured concrete. And my brain says, wait a second, where's my side of the story? Regardless, with this whole process has been to recycle. I look at what's done in Fremont County and I said, it can be better. We can take the waste stream. We can't divert everything. We don't have millions of dollars to put into what you would call a MRF, a municipal recycling facility. We don't have that. Fremont County doesn't generate enough waste for that. But we do have talent and we do have people looking for work that say, you can assist in this process. We might not divert 50% of that waste stream. Maybe we'll be 10%, maybe we'll be 25%. But that's 25% that doesn't have to go into the landfill. So when we talk about being environmentally sound, when we talk about being the equality, we just want that chance to prove what we can do. And to say that we've proven that we burn, we're not looking to create a burn facility by any means. We have no intent, none whatsoever. What we have proven, at least through the metal side of our industry, well documented, over 10,000 tons of metal has been cleaned up in the state of Wyoming. That's everything from mom and pa's farm to coal mines to power plants, gas plants, Fremont County. We've done amazing things to clean up our environment on the metal side of things. So focusing on the permit, we want to be in Riverton because we believe we can do something on a smaller scale to help divert, to help clean that same side of the recycle industry. Our claims aren't that we're going to create some magical new product. You know, the genre is you can recycle, you can reduce, and you can reuse. There's not a lot in Fremont County that we're going to reuse. Currently, they reuse shrubs, they reuse pallets, they'll grind them up and create a product. We have additional products we would love to create, love to be able to give back to the community. What we can do is reduce. We can take the little bit of garbage that we currently work with and reduce what gets pushed into the ground. That's our focus all along, is saying what can we do to help out our environment and do our little part to be green. This is what I do. This is my livelihood. This is what supports my family. I'm not here on behalf of my dad, my mother, it's Mike Dimmick saying this is what I have chosen to do with my life in the state of Wyoming for the past 8 years, and I would love to have that opportunity to continue those recycling efforts.
All right, thank you. So now you can be asked additional questions. Mr. Law.
I have no questions.
Ms. Darrow.
Thank you, Mr. Hearing, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Dimmick. You testified previously you're the president of Hopper Metals, correct?
Yes.
And you're also the president of Hopper Disposal?
Yes.
And those are organized as corporations in the state of Wyoming, correct?
Yes.
All right. Isn't it true that both corporations had delinquent tax notices for the years 14, 15, and 16?
I'm not aware of that.
But you're the president of the companies, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you're not aware that you were behind in payment of taxes owed?
What I am aware of is that we are current.
Current. And how do you know that?
Because I've received no tax notices to state otherwise.
Okay. Do you employ an accountant for your companies?
I have an accountant, yes.
Okay. Regarding Mr. Plymale's inspection in 2016, you were mentioning his entry onto your property. Isn't it true you gave him permission to inspect the property?
You'd have to define gave him permission.
When he called you up and asked if he could enter your property, you gave permission, correct?
I would argue that was a misleading conversation.
Did you confront him about being on your property when he was there?
My relationship with Charlie has been much more of a friendly nature. I did not realize a need to ask him such a question.
So you didn't question his presence on your property at all?
I didn't see there was a need for that.
Okay. And isn't it true he sent you a warning, or an oral warning or a written warning not to burn at the Shoshone facility?
Correct. We could clarify that if you'd like.
No, thank you. When your testimony earlier, or I should say on cross-exam, you mentioned that something was either smoldering or burning at the facility on Mr. Playmail's second visit, correct?
Yes,
And you claim no one was at the site at the time, correct?
correct.
And yet, no one was supervising whatever was burning or smoldering at the site? To your knowledge?
I would answer your question saying smoldering can smolder for a long time. So yes, you could argue that it wasn't, someone should have been there, but at the same time, you could also take the perspective of it was contained.
And do you have proof it was contained?
Sure, it was in a container
And how do you know this?
because I'm the property owner, you would say.
So you were aware that something was smoldering and burning that day?
I would say I was aware that something was smoldering.
Thank you. Mr. Dimick, are you going to have any outdoor facilities at your proposed facility? I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Outdoor solid waste management facilities at your proposed site?
What do you mean?
Any method of handling solid waste that's outdoor, for instance, outdoor storage?
You'll have to define what you consider solid waste.
Well, I'll define it as low volume, low hazard solid waste as defined by the regulations.
Do you consider cardboard to be a waste or a recycled product?
Actually, I'm asking the questions, sir. Do you consider, or do you propose that you're going to store anything on your facility outdoors?
I don't understand your question.
Okay, let me back up. Are you going to store and bundle used tires at the facility?
To me, what you're asking, if I may clarify, just to
Actually,
store
I
it?
don't understand. I can rephrase the question.
Okay, rephrase the question.
All right, are you going to collect tires and store them at your facility?
Things will be stored until they are shipped to be recycled.
Okay, and what do you, how long do you propose storing them before they can be shipped?
Typically, we strive to ship by a truckload.
And are things, for instance, such as tires stored outdoors or indoors?
They are stored outdoors.
And you are proposing doing this at your facility, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know who will manage your facility?
Depends on who applies.
I have no more questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Owen. Mr. Sellers.
Thank you, Your Honor. A follow-up question to something Ms. Darrow asked you. You said that you never questioned Charlie's presence on your property.
Correct.
Okay. Until today, when you expressed that he may have been there illegally because he found a violation, correct?
No, that's not correct.
Well, you insinuated, did you not, in one of your questions, that Charlie was not there lawfully?
That is correct.
So the only time he was there he was fine to be there until he found a violation, then you're questioning his even being there, right?
That's not correct.
So you're going to take in approximately, I don't have the numbers, 50 cubic yards per day of municipal solid waste,
I hope so.
okay? And you're going to take out the recyclables.
Yes.
And what are you going to do with the remaining municipal solid waste?
Send it to a disposal facility.
Where at?
Does that matter?
Where at? That's the question. You're under oath.
I am under oath. There are a list of facilities. Would you like me to name them?
I'd like to know the ones that you have in mind that you're going to send the unrecyclable products to.
I'm going to object as to relevance. An operating plan of that kind is not required in the permit application process.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah, please respond.
Well, Mr. Dimick has presented to this board in his early testimony the tremendous businessman he is, has made these monies, has sold all this scrap metal. has all these miles logged with no incidents. If he's going to run this facility that he's applied for in a proper manner, he darn sure better know where he's going to take the excess product.
So what I'm gonna uphold the objection. The point being that Mr. Dimick does not have a permit at this point, and so the business has not been operated, and so a decision like this, I would imagine, is a business decision that's made, and possibly could be made, changed month to month, depending on where he's able to send this. So I appreciate the question as to where, especially but I agree with the objection. So please ask another question.
Okay, the next question is, what are you going to do with your oil?
Put it into a container.
Okay, and then where are you going to recycle that at?
Do you want the physical location?
I want to know, tell me where you're going to recycle the oil.
Mr. Hearing Officer, same objection. Moreover, it's outside the scope of his direct.
Lawyers tell me it's outside the scope of the makes you want to go there, but I wasn't talking about. But the objection, it is it sounds like the same question.
I can make it real simple. I'm not interested in the intricacies of his business going down the road.
Oh, yeah, but I am. So the first question was, what are you going to do with what's left over? So that's a waste question. It's after he's taken out what he can use. The used oil presumably has a value to somebody, and so I consider this a product that he's going to try to sell. So I am interested to know what he plans to do with a potential product.
And Mr. Chair, it goes directly to the legalities of the permit. We've heard testimony today that he's not going to bring this oil or CRTs or TVs to the Fremont County Solid Waste District for free. So we need to know where he's going to take it, how much it's going to cost, because those figures need to be put into his financial assurance, not the free of charge zero. So it's very relevant as to the application standards and one of the three requirements.
And that's also the case, but I'm allowing your question, so.
Okay, so let's go to electronics.
I am allowing your question. I'm allowing the question on the used oil.
Okay, where are you going?
So a supplier that will buy or take used oil is called Tri-State
Okay,
Recycling.
and what will the cost be, if any?
We could have presumed what was presented earlier, 17 cents per gallon.
Okay,
However, there are a lot of local people that choose to burn waste oil in their furnaces. Certainly, they may have interest in recycling the oil locally as well.
okay, how about antifreeze? You have 5,000 gallons maximum, I believe. Where's that going?
I think it's better to answer your question as far as where each thing is going to go, but to rather look at what we've done here.
Wait. You're not answering my question. You're evading it. Where are you going to take your used?
If we receive used antifreeze, which we may or may not, we've allowed so we can be in compliance if we chose to do that. We would locate another supplier. It's not hard to find.
At a cost.
Perhaps.
Okay. How about your non-CRT electronics?
We would utilize a supplier.
At a cost.
Perhaps.
So your financial assurance is that you submitted and that was approved is not accurate and technically correct because there's a cost to those items and you have put in there no cost, correct?
No.
What do you mean, no? You've just told us that if the district doesn't take it, you're gonna take it. We used oil. You may be able to give away, you may not, but you would agree with the 16% or the 16 cents a gallon or whatever figure. And yet you have no charge in your financial assurance, but you cannot testify before this board that it's going to cost you nothing because you are relying on the district and the district won't accept it in that volume, correct?
No. What I can testify is although we permitted for it, does not mean that we will accept it.
Okay, so now you're not going to accept the oil and antifreeze?
I'm saying what we've permitted, if we choose to do that, we may not take electronic vote.
And I understand that. But as part of your permit application, you have to do under Chapter 7 a financial assurance, right?
It'd be better to answer.
No. Yes or no? It's required.
We've done that.
Okay, and that requirement is that you submit financial assurance, and I may not have the words exact, but at the maximum that you're permitted for, to go in and clean it up and dispose of it, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so you've asked for 5,000 gallons of oil. Your financial assurance, by law, by regulation, has to cover disposal of that, correct?
Correct.
And yours does not because it says free of charge, and it's not going to be free of charge, is it?
That depends.
It depends. It might not, but you haven't done the analysis to figure it out. You haven't submitted the supporting documents from any independent third parties that will verify or not verify whether it's free or not free.
That's not correct.
No, you didn't do any of that because you were assuming the district would take it, right?
We have no reason to believe otherwise, as previously stated earlier today. There's nothing on the website that says we will not accept commercial.
Testimony you've heard today is they won't invoke for commercial. You can haul 5 gallons of used oil to somebody who will purchase it just as easy as the district.
What I perceive happening, to better answer your question, is that we will be willing and happy to modify our financial assurance. It's been highlighted that we're about $300 off on our 15%. We're not arguing that, absolutely, let's make some modifications if that's necessary, by all means.
Okay, the problem is this, that you made an application for a permit. The DEQ deemed it to be technically adequate.
I think we got this down. Yeah, and we've had this down since we hit the 15%, and you very pointedly and clearly, which I appreciate, pointed out these numbers early this morning. We had it then.
Okay, but
we sure have it now. So let's move on. I think that I can't speak for the rest of council. There's no question we're under bonded here. I mean, the 50% was missed right off the top. The DEQ went to sleep on that. So that's where you start. There's no question this thing's gonna have to be amended. So we don't need to spend another half an hour on this. We got this deal in spades.
okay, as long as it's realized that it's not just the 15%.
That's been a while.
And you know, the question is, he prepared it, it was submitted, and he prepared it, right? We know that's right there in evidence, and we know that, and we have heard testimony that there's things missing. So,
Okay, I'll move on.
yeah.
Why's Dave's at fault? Why'd you put it on his letterhead?
I did not put it on his letterhead.
Look at exhibit
Your question was,
WS3.
I did not put it on
Dave put it on Dave's letterhead after you gave it to him, right?
which Dave,
Dave Long.
which Dave Long.
The one who's on there, Mike.
No, he did not.
You gave him the document and it was put on the Dave's asphalt letterhead and then submitted, correct?
Your question was.
No, that's my question. Correct or not correct?
Rephrase the question, please.
You came up with the figures and you stuck it on, and your figures were placed on Dave's asphalt letterhead. never signed, but submitted as your cost estimates, correct?
Dave's Asphalt agreed to the terms that were submitted. Yes, I prepared a financial assurance. Yes, another third-party entity looked at it and said, apparently, those are good numbers. We're willing to put our letterhead on top of that. Dave Long did not do that. Mike Dimmick did not do that. Just to answer your question, when you stated Dave Long, president, he did not do that.
His name is on the right-hand side.
But your question was, did he?
Yeah, his secretary did. Okay, Mike, I understand. I have nothing further.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lemon.
Michael, you stated you're here for Fremont County, is that correct? You're here to better Fremont County? You've made that statement, okay. My question is do you feel that your facility will improve Fremont County?
Yes.
In what way?
For every pound that we're able to recycle is 1 pound less that goes in the landfill.
Do we not have a facility 1,000 feet away that does the same thing?
Not to the extent that we're willing to do.
So you're admitting that you're going to be doing, this permitting that you have gotten is you're going to go to capacity, correct? You just got through saying you may not take antifreeze, you may not take oil, but the facility 1,000 feet away from you does.
We have a different process than what they do with their facility.
Would you explain to me what the process is?
Absolutely. What currently happens at the Riverton Bale Station, there's no waste processing that is mixed. So a commercial hauler, a public, anybody that comes to that facility, clean facility, yes, they throw their waste on the ground, dump it on the ground. My trucks do that. Mr. Levin's trucks do that. Anybody's welcome to dump it on the ground. But what happens is once it hits the ground, if it is commingled, mixed, or anything, it is pushed into a pile with a loader. It is then grabbed and put into a large trailer and transported from Riverton to Lander and buried in a hole. No sorting. It doesn't matter if a load had 90% cardboard in it. If it's deemed gross, it is not recycled. So our proposal, as we watch this happen, says, wow, for the 10 minutes that it would take to pull out that 50 pounds, 5 pounds, 1,000 pounds of cardboard, absolutely, let's kick it aside 10 feet so we can put it into a baler and ship it out to be recycled.
But you said you're going to employ, so I'm going to assume that if you're saying you're going to employ people, that affects the county's employment. So there's really no benefit to employment here. Because if he loses commodity or loses a service, it's a wash, correct? As far as employees is what I'm asking. You sat there and testified that you were going to add employees. But maybe the county will lose employees because of your facility, correct?
No.
If the volumes go down, then they have to cut, don't they?
I don't think
that's just it. So like I said, the other thing a couple of things, Mike, is you stated that the burning, you did know what was when the DEQ came out, you did not know what was being burnt?
No, I asked if they knew what was being burnt.
Did you know what was being burnt?
You'd have to define, did I know? Did I know if it was a pop can? Did I know if it was a brand? Did I know if it was...
I guess the question is, was it MSW?
Not both times.
But there was a time it was MSW.
There was a time when household garbage, which, to note, is legal to burn in Fremont County. It is not a crime to burn garbage in Fremont County.
And it is how you don't have a burn permit.
If we drive through this county and count the number of burn barrels that are available at a home, at a dwelling, at an office, you and I both know there are a lot of burn barrels.
But what my question is that's private. This was commercially collected, correct? There's a difference, and you and I both know that.
We do both.
I cannot take my waste and get a burn permit and burn it.
Correct.
So again, my question is, did you know there was MSW from commercial in that burn barrel?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. The other thing is, you're saying 2 days, and I appreciate, like I said, I don't want to tell you, my safety record is incredible, and I'm really proud of you because that's tough to do, but with one driver and I've got over 30, I have probably a better safety record. So my question to you is how do you comply with DOT when I know for a fact that you have had an extensive overhaul on your equipment just to meet those demands? And what in this permitting, what I'm going to say to you, I guess is what I'm asking is, how are we assured that what you're going to be operating now is going to be up to snuff on the highways?
I'll answer that question if the council thinks that's relevant, but.
I will draw it, okay. There was a new violation, or actually, in the EPA, I'm going to ask straight up, were you involved in any of the activity that's alleged going on the reservation?
I got it.
Yeah, that's.
That all pertains to.
I will answer. I'd like to answer that.
It pertains to.
Well,
I'll answer in 30 seconds.
I'll let the witness answer.
Thanks, Mike.
The Northern Arapaho tribe had a problem. 17 Mile was a transfer station operated by the county. They had illegal dumping like you cannot believe. A decision was made to burn that. I did not burn that. I was not on site to burn that. I had nothing to do with the lighter that lit that fire.
So thanks. That's.
But what I was asked to do as a contractor, I was asked to come in and clean up the mess. And that's what we did. We cleaned up a mess. That's what we did. That's what we are doing today. Again, at 17 Mile, we were hired by the Shoshone tribe to go out and clean up another estimated 400 ton of illegal dumping on the reservation. And that's what we do today. Yesterday, we hauled in another 10.92 ton. But no, I did not burn that. Yes, EPA came to our scrapyard and asked me questions, and they reviewed everything that they could see. No, we were not issued any violations. No, they did not find anything that said you were a criminal. We were hired as a contractor to clean up a mess.
Since you went there, were you involved in the burying of the trash that's out there?
What we were involved in was doing what we were hired to do.
Thanks, Mike. This recent violation that you just got today, we all just got today. The question I have is Mr. Plymouth came out to your facility and basically red tagged is a simple way to put it, right? No more work can be done to the permits on the concrete work that was being done at this proposed site.
He contacted myself instead of the landowner, if that's what you're asking.
Okay.
I was not on site.
And no work continued after that.
I've not done any work on that.
Was there work done after you were contacted to stop working?
You need to contact the landowner if the landowner did some work on that site. I didn't do any work on that site.
Okay. And you've contacted Tri-State, you've been in contact with Tri-State about possibly the oil recycling?
If that's relevant, yes.
That's it. Thanks, Mike.
Mr. McFarland?
A couple of quick questions that may seem flippant and argumentative, and I don't mean them to be. I only address them because of the creative use of statistics. And I asked simply because you responded to my use of probability rather than possibility. And I commend your work record as well. You were comparing the number of days that you've worked to the number of violations. There's a different way to look at that, and I'll pose it in the form of a question or two this way. How many facilities do you currently own or operate in Fremont County dealing with trash recycling or low volume transfer?
I own one facility.
And that's the one in Shoshone?
That I own.
Okay.
I function on the facility, but yes, I own that one.
That's what I want. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because, again, it may seem really flippant. How many NOVs have you received from that facility?
We have one pending NOV
Okay, so you have one facility and one NOV.
in 8
How
years.
many current applications for facilities are you involved in right now?
Just one.
Okay, and how many NOVs have you received for that proposed facility?
My name is on something that was dropped on a desk today, but that's the first thing that I've known anything.
Okay,
So
so
that,
would it be fair to say one?
no,
Well, I have it.
sure.
Okay, so I'm just gonna say, and then I'll be done with this because you can see where I'm going with it. We got one proposed facility application and one violation, and one current facility and one violation. Simple math would say that's actually 100%, which is more than a probability.
I would like to respond to that. The good news would be if one facility in 8 years has one violation and other facility has one violation, and you're gonna have 8 years of no worries.
Thank you, Mr. McFarland. Any questions from the council? None? Ms. Owen?
So in your financial assurances and your business plan, you said you were planning on sending some of your diverted waste to the landfill. And then you stated that you weren't. You were diverting stuff out of the landfill in order to keep it from being pushed into the hole. And I guess I'm just confused.
So so to answer that question, the larger capacity where there's thousands and thousands of tons of volume, we don't have that in Fremont County. So we're not looking to have a residual rate of 10%. We work with companies, that's what they do. So what our goal is to say, as of right now as a company, 100% of typically all the waste that we haul goes into the hole, into the landfill.
Right.
So our approach is we'll get that tonnage and then divert what we can, and then the residual of that will go into a landfill.
And there's been lots of debate on Mr. Plumell going onto your property, Plumell, I'm sorry. And what did you think he was doing on your property?
Charlie's acted as a friend over the years. A typical encounter with Charlie is he'll show up, and he'll give me some rundown of what he sees on a very friendly level. We get through the matters at hand, and we may sit in a pickup truck for an hour, 2 hours, shooting the breeze, talking about building corrals or welding something together or something on a very unrelated issue when it comes to waste. So to get a phone call from Charlie wasn't to say, oh no, I'm in trouble. This is someone who I respect as a friend, who I feel has strived to help me stay in compliance over the time. And so it's not to point fingers and say, no, that was a bad day. A typical encounter with Charlie was, hey, Mike, I just want you to understand, let's work on this, but not from the nature of, Mike, this is urgent. You're going to get in trouble if you do this. It's more of a suggestion of, I want to be your friend and help you through this.
And in the past, did the Fremont County Solid Waste Disposal District have a commercial fee structure?
Commercial fee structure?
Yeah, I mean, you obviously, my understanding is that you've been hauling trash commercially for several years. And, if I take trash to my local landfill, it's free. I can take it in and it's free. But if the local contractors take it in, it costs them money.
There's consistent, they charge $80 a ton to you, to me, to a commercial, et cetera. There's a $5 minimum in the city of Riverton as far as if someone comes across and doesn't meet that 200-pound limit, but everybody pays $80 per ton.
Okay. Those were my questions.
Thanks. And actually, you asked one of my questions, which was going to be what was the tipping fee, so we've heard that. Where is the Fremont County landfill? I just don't know.
So there are a couple of them. There is a landfill here in Lander.
Okay.
That's the one that they utilize as far as hauling waste from Riverton. There's also a landfill in Riverton. It's about 15 miles outside town called Sandraw Landfill.
Okay.
That's typically what we use for material that they've asked us to, larger projects, C&D waste.
Okay. Now, this council has seen issues in the past with other facilities, not yours, but with respect to tires. The tires bother us a lot. And so my question for you is, what is your plan for tires?
Can I show you a picture? You mind? Of tires?
Okay.
I got lots of pictures I'd show you if you want to see the pictures, but since you said tires, let me just show you a tire.
Yeah, we can enter it as an exhibit.
Well, I've got some more if you'd like. You know, so what you see there is a tire bale. That bale weighs approximately 2,000 pounds and it contains between 70 and 80 tires.
Okay.
So what we're able to do with tire bales, people argue, but number one, it makes it so we can transport that waste stream much more efficient. We can put on a flatbed truck and pay one-way freight. What do people do with them? You know, outside of this county, some people build walls with them. Actually, we did a job for Fremont County Solid Waste at the Riverton landfill. We created a bunch of those bales and they made a retaining wall to help with the erosion issues that they had on that facility. But we're able to create those bales because it mitigates as far as it compresses everything into that bundle. So we're not dealing with standing water. We're not dealing with animals and such growing in it. We grab a product that we can now lift with a forklift, we lift with an excavator, put on a truck, and it can go to a downstream from there.
Okay, so the tires aren't going to pile up in an enormous.
No, to put my cards on the table, it is a challenge for me with my tires to stay within my 1,000, my limit of 1,000. The reason being, it's hard work. You know, good workers are hard to find, but we make those bales, but this county generates a lot of tires. And so as I found myself, sometimes when I would be lacking, I said, you know, we can't take on new business. So most tires go to the Riverton landfill. It's just how it is. Most of them, that's where they have to go. But they're permitted for 5,000 tires, and we can only do 1,000. So we do our best to stay on top of that. When we hit that capacity, at times if we can't send them to a downstream, we will load them up, and they have to go to the Shoshone landfill. They're open one day a month on a Saturday for about 5 or 6 hours, and we will haul what we need to haul to better stay in compliance. But we have the machine that does that. We've used that machine for several years, and it was a capital investment. We said this is something that will help create more work, more jobs, and it is a challenge. It is tough. But no, to answer your question, we don't have thousands of tires that pile up and create a nuisance.
Good.
Ask if there's any objection.
Is there any objection to us adding this as an exhibit?
No.
All right, so we've introduced it as DIM 1. If I have any more questions. So you mentioned that you were willing to modify the financial assurance document based on information that you've heard today. Is that true?
Yes.
That's all the questions I have. Do you have any final comments? Since you won't redirect, questions to you.
I appreciate you taking the time to care. I appreciate the public reaching out saying we should have some clarity on what's going to happen. I appreciate the opportunity that if you look at the bigger picture to realize this is good. This is good for the environment. This is good for the customer. Recycling is something that unifies a community. Everybody can participate in it. Doesn't matter how much money you make, what color you are, what you do. Everybody generates trash. And so to be a part of that, I think is great for Fremont County. I don't know how much we'll recycle, but we'll do our part. Because right now we're lacking. And I don't think there's anything wrong with the free enterprise system. I think it's fantastic for someone to step up and say, I don't have a government grant. I don't have millions and billions of dollars backing me on it, but I've proven that I can do it. I've proven over the years that we're still here. We're sustainable. We're not one of those businesses that failed in the first 2 years. We're not one of them that failed in the next 2 years after that. We beat the mark. Yes, we had an incident in our yard. Yes, some garbage was burned. Did we burn a semi-load of garbage? We did not. Did we dump that garbage on the ground? We did not. Did we make a bad choice? And we made a bad choice that day. Did it save us thousands of dollars? It didn't.
Your Honor, is this redirect?
I'm allowing you to have closing thoughts here, since it's this unusual case where the person testifies, and I don't want him to come out and ask himself a question and then.
Okay, and then I guess.
You're asking him to wrap it up is what I'm gathering.
Well, going back to Mr. Flitner's concerns, I don't see how any of this has to do with the application or the law. It's a soapbox type speech that's better made at closing.
Thank you for your comment. So please wrap it up.
I love what I do. I wake up in the morning, and yes, it might be off topic, but I love what I do. I love looking at chaos and seeing what it becomes. I love looking at that pile of trash and saying, I'm going to do my part to get that removed. I love looking at the scrap, these insurmountable things, and cutting it up into little pieces and saying, that's what's fun for me. That's what I'm passionate about doing. If I wasn't passionate about doing a recycle center, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't go through the headache. I wouldn't have put a year of my life into trying to get to this point today, saying, this is what I want to do. But I love what I do, and I believe I'm good at what I do.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dimick. Do you have any other witnesses?
No.
All right. Thank you. May step down. Let's take 10-minute recess. Back here at 5 minutes to 3. And I'll ask if you have any further evidence to.
Okay.
session. So Mr. Laurent, do you have any further evidence that you would like to present?
After conferring with my client to make sure I didn't screw anything up, I think we're good.
All right, great, thank you. So we are now done with the evidentiary portion of the hearing, which is why we're here today. As I said earlier, we do not have enough of the council here to vote, but that also saves the lawyers from having to make closing arguments today. What we will do is we will keep this hearing. It will be recessed, but it will remain open. We will ask for your closing arguments in written form. We will be sending an order out by Monday with more details, but in general, I'll give you a preview of what we're expecting. Well, let me ask this. Is the Wednesday after Thanksgiving enough time for folks to get their closing arguments together? We want to keep this moving forward, but we do know there's Thanksgiving in there, and we don't want to get voted on too far behind. All right, so
Any idea what date that might be?
Thanksgiving's the 23rd, so it would be the
Friday.
29th.
the 29th.
So that gives us 20 days. I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be about 2 weeks from the time you order, you get the people.
For the district's perspective, I have no issue with that.
Okay. Any other concerns? Okay, good. So that will be formalized in the orders, but that's what we'll be shooting for. And when we will get those, other council members will watch the YouTube presentation, read the transcripts, and once we have council members who've heard and seen and read everything that the three of us have seen today, and then looked at the closing arguments, we will reconvene and finish the hearing. At that point, once we finally make our decision, at that point, and I don't know when that will be, it will be as soon as we can. We'd like to wrap these up as quick as we can as well. And then we will have 30 days after our closing that hearing to get the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and order issued. So to give you an idea of what's coming. So with that, do you have any questions?
Yeah, you said reconvene the hearing. You don't mean with the parties, but just with the council?
Just with the council. So the hearing, again, technically remains open until we are able to finish. And when we do that, everyone will know where it is and when. It likely won't be here in Lander, but folks will be welcome to attend, and it's a public meeting, so there will be opportunity to join by phone or whatever. But it won't be with the evidence has been collected.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, I want to thank everybody for your time and for coming forward. It's very important to hear everyone's views on these things. One of the things that I've learned serving on this council is that it's just really important to hear on these issues. These are important issues that we're dealing with, and I know it takes time to do this. I appreciate everyone's time and effort on this. And so with that, this hearing is recessed. Thank you very much.